Hey, we are live, episode 124.
124. Awesome. Of what?
Suzilla.
Suzilla. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Suzie.
It's Suzilla at Matt and Susie's place, which is Wenatchee Insurance or Suzie Health Solutions or whatever you want to call us today because they're both accurate. Hi, welcome aboard. We're in Wenatchee. And after a jaunt to Olympia, our state capital this week.
Yeah, it was miserable as expected.
It wasn't that bad. The drive back was very, very wet, but the trip while we were there was not as wet as you anticipated.
No, because that is the running joke. This is about my 9th or 10th year I've done this.
Has it been that many?
Yeah, it has been that many.
I know you can't really count COVID years though.
Yeah, I'm ignoring the COVID because we shut down, and this is our first one back. It was a lot smaller than usual.
It was my first one, so I'm going to have to defer on that.
Only got to meet with 2 out of 3 legislators.
It's typical though.
Yeah, usually it's tough to catch. The only reason that we know that the third one was in Wenatchee for Monday and was coming back in the afternoon. The reason we know that is because of Wolfpack and Sarah
hi Sarah.
And they had the lobbying day before us on Martin Luther King Day.
Yes. So they're doing their lobbying on Monday. We did our lobbying on Tuesday.
Yeah, and
yes, we were lobbyists.
and that's the important thing is your common people, if you get a chance, lobby for good causes.
You've always got the opportunity to go and speak to your legislator about important things. This is a specifically cut out time. It's the beginning of the legislative session. They carve out chunks of time to meet with their constituents.
Yeah, and
most people don't even know this exists.
Yeah, most people don't know it exists. It's one of those things that we kind of stumbled into with our association with NAHU, soon to be name changed.
Yeah, NABIP.
I don't know. It's one of those ones where we're looking at them. It's like, okay, we might have to jump associations.
Just because we hate the new name.
Yeah, because we're kind of simple that way. And
among other things.
And there's doing this is important because you get to meet your legislators and kind of understand the sausage making process that is laws.
Yes. And I'd met one of them before. I'd met Mike Steele.
Yeah, you met him at the
YMCA.
YWCA.
YWCA.
The tour that we did for their facility for housing.
Yes, which was very cool. And then I'd not met Keith Gaynor before. Mm-hmm. He looked exactly like I expected him to.
Yeah.
Mike's more along our feel.
Yeah,
appearance-wise.
Well, he comes out of the Chamber of Commerce out of Chelan.
Right, so he's actually literally a local guy.
Mm-hmm. And very business forward.
Yes, which is appreciated. Both of them are Republicans, and we will work with a reasonable Republican just like we'll work with a reasonable Democrat.
Yeah, because the bottom line is we're right in the middle. We're not very conservative. We're not very liberal. We're
weirdly moderate.
We're weirdly moderate, and then we believe that people should be taken care of.
People should be given respect and taken care of, which has a tendency to lean a little on the left side, but that's moot.
Yeah,
well, that's not our topic today. The topic is we were going and shaking them down for stuff that we felt like needed to be addressed.
Yeah, and it was interesting because we kind of shifted a bunch of people's focus.
We may actually have accomplished something this week.
Because one of the primary things that was thrown out by the group that we went with that they wanted to talk about was the Washington long-term care program.
Right, and the lobbying group that we went with this association very much not happy about it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, we write these policies, so we want to write them ourselves and get paid for them. And it wasn't hey, this is a program that doesn't require underwriting, is really affordable when you compare it against standalones.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't cover enough. Yes, it has problems with solvency because they try to make it too cheap.
Yep.
Um, but the bottom line is it's moving forward July 1st.
Right. So if you're a business owner, or if you are someone who gets paid by a business owner, you're going to see a small reduction in your income because of it.
Yeah, it's going to hit your payroll taxes.
Not heavily, but it will hit it.
Yeah, I think it's like 2.8%.
I thought it was less than that. It was like 1.6.
Yeah,
it's a very reasonable amount.
It's really reasonable because one of the things that there's this shift in the last couple of years has been insurance in the public sector versus private sector.
It's been a fight for over a decade.
Well, it's longer than that because if you think about it, Social Security is public insurance.
That's true. And so is Medicare.
So is Medicare. So is Medicaid. These are things. Unemployment is insurance, and most people forget that. It's like, yeah, they're a pub. And when you like look at comparison in say Denmark or Sweden, and some of those that are really forward, they've got a really public forward program.
They also, and one of the trade-offs is a higher tax based on to support those programs.
Correct. And you also get higher services.
Right. Although there are those who would argue that the services are lacking.
Yeah, there's going to be that argument. And we see that there's also an increase in services demand on our side. And for example, Washington Apple Health Cares, which they passed last March, is going to provide for the chronically homeless additional funds set aside so they can work on housing.
Right, which is awesome.
So that's the additional services, and that was one of the things that our little lobbyist group was talking about, was on how dangerous it was to put add-ons like that into insurance.
What they're saying is it's every little bit adds up to a lot.
Yeah,
and that's not entirely wrong.
Yeah, and for example, a good one that was done recently is the $35 insulin.
Yes,
because that's a copay, and legislators wanted the consumers to have that direct, right. And unfortunately the short-sightedness was somewhere during that healthcare chain has got to eat those costs if the costs aren't regulated at the manufacturing level.
That's where that's where the flaw actually starts. It's the manufacturing level. They're gouging prices, and it's almost a accepted knowledge that's like, okay, we're just going to overcharge. We're going to squeeze as much as we possibly can, but as it trickles down the distribution chain, someone's got to eat the extra cost. And right now with the $35 insulin, which is a raw retail price for some of these of over $800 a month.
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from? Well, until the manufacturers until that setup gets regulated, it's coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Well, it's coming out of the insurance companies or taxpayer's pocket,
or some combination of two.
Who's responsible for payment?
Exactly.
And that's going to be an ongoing issue. It's why when they did the Inflation Reduction Act, they put in, hey, we're gonna start having negotiated.
Right. They're going to start negotiate. They're going to announce the negotiated. The drugs are going to start negotiating this year. We'll start seeing the negotiation, and we'll have I can't remember. I want to say we're going to see negotiated rates in 24, 25. They'll start the negotiations in 24, have them going 25, and then every year going forward. They're not negotiating every drug. They're negotiating the most expensive medications that are the most commonly used. A good example is a blood thinner called Eliquis.
Okay.
Extremely expensive. Not the most expensive, but it's right up there. But that's the one that's been putting people in the donut hole like crazy in the last 2 years.
Yeah, because
on Medicare.
Yeah, because the drug prices is one of the I think it's the number one driver at this point of healthcare costs.
Right, and it's because I'm going to go at this as I'm kind of speaking at this in a off the cuff manner. A lot of those costs come from the manufacturer. and and they say, oh, it's
They like to blame the PBMs,
actually
pharmacy benefit managers.
yes, they do like to, but they're also going to say, well, these are expensive because of research and development.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you've already researched it, you've already developed it. What's with the cost?
Well, a good example of that is Moderna and some of the other COVID vaccines.
Yes.
But Moderna is the one that's really hot on my mind. Is they did the Operation Warp Speed, which paid for a lot of the development. I mean, dropped $1 billion into that development and getting it done. So the taxpayers paid for that.
And that's why we're not having to pay for the vaccines.
Well, no.
No? Oh.
Because there is a cost. There's a small cost.
Well, yeah, there's the cost of manufacturing it.
That raise for Moderna is going to increase by 4 times.
Oh.
The reason why we're not paying it for it now was like the CARES Act and a couple of the other legislative pieces to cover that.
Oh, when those scale back, because those are temporary moves, we're going to start seeing increased.
Yeah.
Now, for Medicare, one thing Medicare is doing that's happening this year is increased access to vaccines at no cost.
Well, like for example, the shingles.
Right. That's always been it's always been covered by not always, but been covered by your Medicare Part D, which is your drug plan. And usually it's at least a tier 3, which usually means there's a deductible in play, which if most people don't come anywhere near it if they have generic medications and pick the right plan. So you've got this big fat deductible, which means you're paying, upwards of $500 for your shingle shot.
So yeah, these are
not happening.
Yeah, these are some of the things we talk about, and Susie's like, this is so dry. And
oh my God, it was dull.
It was dull. I mean, the most exciting thing about the whole little morning presentation was the guy smoking crack out back.
I think it was meth.
It could be meth.
Could have been. Yeah, because it wasn't your stereotypical crack pipe.
Yeah.
It was like a vape setup of some sort.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know. Either way, he was not smoking illicit. He was smoking an illicit substance.
Yeah.
And then the other guy was here. I have some of these little things out of this little bag. Is like, and then he put them in the thing. It's like, oh well, there we go then. Yeah, it's education of Olympia. Yeah.
So yeah, it's important to go and talk to your legislators.
Yeah.
Because they had no idea, and we ended up going, hey. One of the big things we saw was an increase in retirees looking to cover their health care because the healthcare authority didn't have people that were out there educating their own consumers.
What you've got people who retired from public service.
Yeah.
Teachers mostly, who when they retired, their deal was they work with the healthcare authority, which is our local, it's a Washington state, I don't know, HR department, I guess.
It's the largest purchasers of health insurance in the state of Washington.
Right. They manage Apple Health. They manage the Public Employees Benefit Board. And they had a very large, the PEB retirees, mostly teachers, had a very large rate increase for a plan a great many of them were in, and they did not get the service they need to have their questions answered about what do I do next.
Yeah, and they didn't, and of course because their benefits time overlapped with the open enrollment,
and it's actually a more narrow window.
And they went seeking for Medicare professionals to explain these plans. Now, as Medicare professionals, Susie's not trained for those plans, is not compensated for them, and most importantly, because these folks were seeking help, they were pushing out people that had traditional Medicare plans. They were taking time away from them.
Yeah. If we knew this was coming, we'd have scheduled accordingly. If I had the training, there's so many different things I could have done.
Yeah. And it's this push to have, online resources. You consult. It's like having a central kitchen.
Yeah.
For a restaurant, it doesn't. The food doesn't taste all that great. It serves a lot of people, but you miss a lot of details.
Mm-hmm.
And for insurance, it's all about the details.
And it is a very it's a terrible website. It's very difficult to navigate. One of the things that I've done over the years is bookmarks. Mm-hmm. I've gone over different insurance plans in different ways, and I bookmark key things. That's how I can get where I'm going more quickly. Only because I've done it more than once. Mm-hmm. Your average person looking for health insurance isn't going to. They're going to have a vague idea of where to go look for their drug formulary if they even know they need to go look at a drug formulary.
Oh yeah, it's kind of wild. It gets further than that. One of the things was, because we've been doing Medicare for a while, was they would take a Medigap plan, and we would be able to select a drug plan, and mm-hmm. it put a few dollars in our pocket, so it compensated some of our costs.
Right.
It wouldn't pay enough for gas from here to OMAC, but it compensates some of our costs. That luxury, and I'll say luxury at this point, got removed the minute they introduced a Medicare Advantage plan that covered those drug plans.
Yeah. It's actually a better choice for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, yeah, great, take this G plan, but I'm not going to I could be mercenary about it and say, oh, and then steer them so I could grab the drug plan. Or I could say, you know what, this plan, it's affordable, it's usable, and it covers your prescriptions. Mm-hmm. And you don't have out-of-pocket expenses to speak of. I have to do the right thing, which means I don't get compensated.
So, there are some hard choices there, and
well, like I was telling our legislators, mm-hmm. I want to help take care of my community.
Yeah,
and I would like to be able to keep my lights on in the process.
Well, here's the thing: if you've got this large group that is not compensating you, mm-hmm. that's being created by a state-run organization, they've got to step up and do the right thing.
Yes, and that's not always easy to get them to do that.
It isn't easy. However, it's important to do that. Hey, this is going on, and I kind of flat-footed.
Flat-footed.
Was it Mark Mullet?
Yeah.
Senator
Mark Mullet? It was Mark. Yeah, one of our Democrats, the senator out of Issaquah.
Yeah, he's the senator out of Issaquah.
Yeah, you caught him short, and you actually caught Keith. We actually caught Keith Gaynor and Mike Steele short because they had never. Keith Gaynor barely knew what the Healthcare Authority was.
Yeah, he's kind of terrifying.
His focus is totally different than health insurance.
Yeah,
which is to be expected with
But it's like I'm teachers. You need to really be talking about this, particularly if you're getting over 50, because it's gonna the things we do now are either going to directly impact you now,
or they will in the future, or
they will in the future.
Yep. You want to have somebody, because if you've ever tried to contact the Healthcare Authority mm-hmm. to talk about your plan when you're getting ready to retire, you know how bad it is.
Oh yeah, and see, I have a little bit of vested interest in this because my mom is a retired state employee.
That's right.
And it's one of the things that we looked over. It's like, oh no, you want to keep this as long as possible.
She had a good package, and I don't know.
Yeah, she's a Pierce too.
Pierce too. Yeah, when you're up,
mm-hmm.
she's fine.
Yeah,
she's just fine. I imagine her rates went up, but
yeah,
I don't know. No one asked me, so I don't know.
But yeah, it's important to have these conversations because they don't know what's going on. That their world is different.
Yeah. This is the health insurance, although it is extremely politically driven, is not the focus of 98% of the legislators, because they've got a lot of things that they've got their fingers in a lot of pots, and this mm-hmm. is not a pot that really.
It's weird because we just can't. We're still at the edge of the public health emergency
Yeah.
of COVID.
Just winding that up.
I got an email yesterday, the day before, from the healthcare authority saying they expect to be fully operational in regards to Apple Health come April 1st.
Which means if you've been on Apple Health throughout COVID, regardless of your income, they're going to start the renewal and the audits back up.
Yeah, and that's about 1 million people.
Yeah. You may or may not qualify for Apple Health going forward after April.
Yeah, but it's going to be the scary letters.
Oh my gosh, the scary letters are going to come flying.
And there's a very typical response when you receive the scary letter.
Mm-hmm.
You either ignore it because you never open it,
mm-hmm.
or you ignore it because you don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. It's very human.
Or you get angry about it and just rage quit it.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of those responses. It's like, oh no. Usually we say, oh yeah, let's take a look at it. Okay, this is what this letter means. Yes, you don't qualify for this program. However,
but there is another program that you do qualify for.
So yeah, we're going to be, helping. When I was looking at this, we were looking at 250,000 people.
Yeah,
in our area, because we don't have the Healthplanfinder is designed for leftovers. You don't have a large group plan.
Yeah.
You don't qualify for Medicare.
Right.
That's it.
It's in this.
Oh, you don't qualify for VA.
Right. And I'll tell you, that was a really large number of people. And what the ACA did is it filled that gap.
Yes, it really filled the gap and it got people health care. Some of them for the first time. They didn't know.
In a more affordable manner.
And it's one of those things that I've had more than one person grumble because their employer offered them a lousy plan, and they no longer qualified for a plan on the Healthplanfinder.
Well, no, they qualified for a plan. They didn't qualify for the credits. You can always purchase a plan on the Healthplanfinder. Questions is whether or not how much you're going to pay, because with a plan through the Washington Healthplanfinder, the exchange, the premiums are based on your gross income. Gross household income and other factors as to such as, have you been offered insurance by your employer? Because the theory was this was going to incentivize employers to offer health insurance. No one figured the politicians who put this together didn't think that the insurance companies were going to come up with these garbage plans.
Well, no, employers were looking to reduce costs.
Yeah.
And still offer some benefits. And so they got down to the bare minimums. They call them MEC, minimum essential coverages. I've had a few that were been offered to us to offer, and everyone has been like, "This is bad." It's like, would I use it?
Yeah. Well, the question is, what's the usability factor? And that's something I always work about is usability. And there a lot of these lower cost plans are not terribly usable. So that's another conversation, Okay, what do we do about the less usable plans?
Well, the over a decade ago, I said there are going to be times where you don't want your employer to offer you health insurance.
Yep.
Particularly in the small group market.
Yep. Because it's hard for them to get a plan that covers the bases that is usable and affordable.
Well, when I started looking at the ICRAs,
which we're still hoping can somehow turn around.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure how to turn that around. They literally had a chart on affordability of small group plans versus individual marketplace. And we're in one of those areas where individual plans are more affordable than small groups.
Yep, we are upside down. If you're in a metro area,
and that's average. That's average plan. So you can find great plans at a better price.
Yeah.
And that's one of those considerations. But But, and this is very important, but because not enough people talk
Yeah.
about the price of health insurance, it's right there with talking about your wages.
Yeah.
And they have this weird assumption that oh, if it's a group plan, it must be better.
Yeah. That's old news. Well, but it's still the whole, if it's a group plan, it must be, you know, you're right. They say they think it must be better, but that's, I don't know. It's just
We've blown that one out of the water so many times.
I mean, once in a while it is, but usually it's large group.
Sometimes large group, and it depends on where your level of employment is.
That's absolutely true. Because the higher your level of employment in a large group, if you're working for a large corporation, the vice presidents get better offerings than the janitors.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah. And
we've seen that time and time again.
We've seen that time and time again. It's like, yeah, you got the rate offered. And it's like, come on. It's like, yeah, you take care of your people and they'll take care of you.
Yeah, well, you know.
Well, there's a certain level of, misery factor there.
Yeah, that's been your theme this week is misery factor.
It has been the theme of it.
Because he got rained on, and Matt hates getting rained on.
I hate getting rained on. It's one of those things. It's like, yeah, by the time we got done in the lobby, it's like, yeah, my feet are just wet or just damp and just yuck.
He was all damp and grumpy.
Yeah.
Damp and grumpy.
Yeah. Grumpy.
And at least you didn't have to worry about parking. We figured that part out.
Yes. And
you're welcome, by the way.
We did our first Uber, and that was a good experience. One of the features that the hotel used to have was having a shuttle, and they no longer had a shuttle.
Yeah, that's when and then the pool was closed, and
there was no nightly dinner service,
and they do on demand, cleanings. They clean the rooms after when they turn them between visitors. There's a lot of amenities that got scaled back because of COVID, and they're not likely to come back.
No, they're not going to come back anytime soon.
No.
And it's one of those things. Business shifts.
It does.
However, they've got to really, really get cognizant of that misery factor.
Yeah.
It's if you make it too miserable, people don't want to do business with you.
Makes it harder to travel.
It makes it harder to travel. It was like we got to, I think it's Pierce County, Olympia. Thurston?
I think it's Thurston.
Could be Thurston.
I'd have to look.
But once we got into Olympia, even South Center. Yeah. Every single bathroom had a freaking keypad and a magic code. Yeah.
And signs, bathrooms for no public restrooms.
And it's like, I got to think, it's like, okay, well, so who's eating here? Is this public or is this a private restaurant?
Well, restaurants are private, dear.
They're private business, but you're not charging membership fees or anything.
That's true.
So it's that weird loosey goosey. Hey, you don't want someone off the streets, but hey, you want to get paid for it, and it's like, but you're making amenities worse. Yeah, and that's really important. Yeah. Is we got to have people in these positions that want to make amenities better.
See, one of the things that would make it easier for those restaurants and businesses would be public restrooms available to those who need it. Mm-hmm. Porta potties in the city, kind of thing.
Well, did you see any?
No, there were no public restrooms.
Yeah.
No, but that is something that other very large cities have started to institute.
Yeah. Well, I know even our cities, they lock those on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. That's we're starting to debate the homeless population situation.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that eventually. Yeah. Because it is important. We do service some with healthcare because we're able to.
Yeah, and we're welcome, and we're able to, and we want to. We want to help we want to help support our community, and even the people who do not have roofs over their heads on a regular basis are still part of our community.
Yeah. And that's really, really important. Just like people are people.
Mm-hmm. Everyone deserves, respect and dignity.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, sometimes we got to do the adult thing. Go to a town that's just miserable, and
which is why he doesn't live over there.
It's why I don't live over there. So hey, everyone, have a great day. We're going to be playing catch up for the next 3 days.
Well, today's only Thursday, so I don't know what you plan to do on Saturday.
Well, going to depend on how we get there.
All right, everyone, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.